all my flowers are not in place. All of my flowers are not in place. Ah! Hi, I'm Abby. I have a lot of records, and this is Vinyl Monday. So welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time here. Vinyl Monday is the series where once a week I sit down and just talk about records that I love. If 20-minute deep dive episodes aren't your thing, don't worry. I also do Vinyl Monday in 60 seconds, both here and over on my Instagram. This week's record is Led Zeppelin 4. Well, technically this is the untitled Zeppelin album, but we all just call it Led Zeppelin 4. Even Robert Plant calls it Zeppelin 4. Anyway, congrats to those who guessed it. Oops. Oh my god, imagine. Remember, if you want to play along and guess what album I'm going to do next week, all you have to do is check out my community tab. I do lots of fun stuff over there. I post memes, behind the scenes stuff, polls. It's a fun time. Right, so not to brag or anything, but your girl kind of went off with this week's outfit. At least I think so. I don't know. This is how I exist in like my song remains the same fantasy sequence character outfit. It's giving forest nymph, it's giving luring unsuspecting rock stars into certain peril. I love it. And it's also giving GTOs, can't forget them. All right, let's take the plastic off. And my copy is an original US copy. Original UK copies will run you fat stacks of change. This is just an original US Zeppelin 4. And I know this because it's got Porky in the run out of the wax on my disc. I got this for $15 at one of my local record stores probably 4 years ago at this point. Not bad at all for an original Zeppelin 4 in really good shape. I honestly don't think they knew what they had. Completely forgot. I also have this later repress. I got it in 2018, not exactly sure what year this repress is from, but I definitely play this one a lot more than I've ever played this one. Now let's talk about this cover art. The photography on the front and the back was done by Keith Morris, but things are not as simple as they seem. We actually don't totally know who did this cover art painting situation. As the story goes, Robert Plant bought this oil painting that we see on the cover of Zeppelin 4 at an antique market. But there is a theory, oh god, she's talking about her theories again, that Jimmy Page painted this. Now, hear me out. I know this sounds a little far-fetched, but let me just break it down for you. I mean, think about it. Jimmy Page has been surrounded by artists his whole life. He went to school, he has artist friends, he's been a lifelong collector of art. I mean, oh my god, look at his house. It's like a freaking museum in there. He even invented a time machine to collect Dante Rossetti's muse to be his girlfriend. But it's deeper than just circumstance, all right? This painting here resembles the classical depiction of the Ten of Wands card, specifically the version in the Rider-Waite Tarot. My version from the Ethereal Visions deck was part of your hint this week. Jimmy has also been interested in the Mantic arts his whole life, you know, astrology, tarot. He read Aleister Crowley's work, rumored devil worshipper, and lots of artists are multidisciplinary. So considering all of this, Jimmy painting as a hobby might not be too far-fetched. Like I said, it is a theory. But so is gravity, so take that for what you will. Opening up the gatefold, we have even more allusions to tarot. We have the classical hermit card from the Rider-Waite Tarot as illustrated by Barrington Colby. B-roll Abby's gonna show you that way better than I just did. I feel like half the image was just off the screen. B-roll Abby breaking fourth wall to bring you B-roll Abby's B-roll jam. Today it is I Want You Right Now from the Power Trip bootleg. And on the back cover, we have the Salisbury Tower in Birmingham. Is this a reference to the Tower card, perhaps? Just a thought. We've also got quite a bit of inner sleeve stuff to talk about. I love talking about cool inner sleeves. The cool thing about Zeppelin 4 is that on top of it technically being an untitled album, we don't have the band name anywhere on the packaging. All we have are these 4 symbols, which the guys either designed or picked for themselves. Firstly, we have Jimmy Page's Zoso symbol. We're not totally sure what the Zoso symbol means, as Jimmy made it up himself, but what I can tell you is this underlining portion right here. If you turn it this way, it is the symbol for the planet Saturn. Like I said, Jimmy loved astrology in the 70s. He had, you know, that famous suit with his sun, moon, and rising signs embroidered on it. Jimmy is a Capricorn sun, and the ruling planet of the sign Capricorn is Saturn. Then we have John Paul Jones's symbol, a circle inside a triquetra. JPJ picked this one from a book of symbols, and it means confidence and competence. Then we have John Bonham's symbol, the Borromean rings. They're 3 interlocking circles that resemble drumheads. And finally, Robert Plant's symbol is a feather inside a ring. He also designed this one himself. On the other side of the inner sleeve, we have some lyrics to a song. Jimmy found this font in an antique arts and crafts magazine. He liked it so much that he had the entire alphabet made, and that's what we see in the lyrics to the song. On this album, of course, we have Robert Plant on vocals and harmonica, Jimmy Page on guitar, John Paul Jones on bass, mandolin, keys, and recorder, and John Bonham on drums. This album was produced by Jimmy Page, engineered by Andy Johns, and we have a special guest on this one. We have Sandy Denny doing the guest vocals on the Battle of Evermore. She got to pick her own symbol for the inside as well. She is the 3 triangles. If I'm not mistaken, she's the only female vocalist to ever appear on a Zeppelin studio album. That should speak to her greatness, I think. So, setting the scene for Zeppelin 4. How did we get here? Zeppelin 2, right? Fans loved this one. They could not get enough of these songs. Then we have Zeppelin 3 in 1970, and this one throws off just about everyone, critics and fans alike. They're switching up the sound on this record. There's more acoustic stuff being incorporated, some folksy stuff, and experimentation with varying degrees of success. I do not like Hats Off to Roy Harper. These 2 albums had critics trashing Led Zeppelin simply for being Led Zeppelin, and that directly contributed to the approach we see on the packaging of Zeppelin 4. No title, no liner notes, only Zeppelin! Very soon after the release of Zeppelin 3, the guys go out to Headley Grange to start work on Zeppelin 4. It was a lot more relaxed of an environment than they were used to. There were no bars, no distractions, just music making to focus on. They used the acoustics of the rundown house to their benefit, or at least they thought it was going to be their benefit. We'll get to that soon. Zeppelin also recorded at the Stonesmobile, the mobile studio of the Rolling Stones, after Andy Johns recommended it. He had just worked on Sticky Fingers. Founding member of the Stones, Ian Stewart, was actually in on the recording of some of Zeppelin 4's material. Side note, Sticky Fingers, I think, was my favorite episode of Vinyl Monday I've ever done. I loved going full Keith Richards mode and making people angry because Graham Parsons did not write Wild Horses. The more relaxed, chill, pastoral vibes at Headley Grange proved to be great for Zeppelin's productivity. Black Dog was named after the dog that hung around the Grange and inspired by Fleetwood Mac's Oh Well. I love the symbiotic relationship between the British blues bands. They were all friends with each other, or at the very least, like, knew each other. They all knew each other and they all helped each other out in one way or another, whether it's loaning your song or loaning your portable studio. There are a handful of Zeppelin songs inspired by the work of J.R.R. Tolkien, and you get a couple of them on Zeppelin 4, Misty Mountain Hop and Battle of Evermore. It's said that Page and Plant wrote Evermore together in one sitting. Page had never played the mandolin before JPJ let him play around on it, and this song was the outcome. Plant felt the story would be best told with two vocalists, so he asked Sandy Denny of the Fairport Convention to hop on the track. They'd shared a bill with Zeppelin at the Bath Festival in 1970, and a handful of songs from the Zeppelin 4 sessions would appear on Physical Graffiti: Night Flight, Boogie with Stu, and Down by the Seaside. And a little tune called No Quarter would make its way onto Houses of the Holy. That's right, they were using leftover material from other album sessions before Physical Graffiti, the album that is half leftovers from other albums. Now we are finally looping back to the acoustics at Headley Grange. Zeppelin 4 would have been done for an April 1971 release. Had they not brought the Headley Grange tapes back to Olympic Studios in London, played them back, and realized, oh my god, these sound like hot garbage. So Jimmy Page had to remix an entire album that summer after he'd gone out on tour, touring for the album that wasn't out yet. So for those of you keeping track at home, Zeppelin 3 was delayed because of the packaging, Physical Graffiti also delayed because of the packaging, and 4 was delayed due to audio issues. This means we are 0 for 3 for covering on-time Zeppelin releases on Vinyl Monday. And the track listing goes as follows. Opening up side 1, you have Black Dog, followed by Rock and Roll, then Battle of Evermore, and side A closes with a song that shall not be named. Opening up side B, we have Misty Mountain Hop, followed by 4 Sticks, then Going to California, and the album is closed with When the Levee Breaks, a blues song originally recorded by Memphis Minnie and Kansas Joe. After the lukewarm reception of Zeppelin 3, the reviews come rolling in for Zeppelin 4, and they are overwhelmingly positive. Even Christgau, who doesn't like anything fun and probably breaks out in hives at the thought of experiencing, I don't know, joy, liked this album. He gave it an A in his silly, trite little book. So we're clear on this album, right? We're ready to head on right to my thoughts now? Yeah? No? Unfortunately, we are not in the clear to just talk about my thoughts on this album, because we can't really talk about Zeppelin 4 without talking about that song. You know. Let me make something abundantly clear, okay? I do not dislike Stairway to Heaven. In fact, I like it, but my like is a little closer to toleration, as classic rock radio has played the ever-loving shit out of that song. And there's a reason for this. Just like it doesn't have the band's name anywhere on the packaging, just like it doesn't have a title, and doesn't have liner notes. Zeppelin 4 didn't have any promotional singles. The singles Black Dog and Rock and Roll only came out months after this album's release. And Zeppelin never bothered with singles in the UK. What happened was, when Zeppelin 4 was released without a promotional single and DJs got their hands on their copies of the album, they got to pick and choose what songs got radio play. They basically chose the singles. And that song they all just so happened to pick was Stairway. That song became the cultural institution that it is today because of DJs. I don't know about you, but man, I think that's pretty cool. Some pretty cool advances in equipment came out of that song as well. Jimmy Page had his double neck guitar made for playing both the acoustic and electric halves of that song live. As for the accusation of Zeppelin stealing that song, the one everybody thinks of, the one that was brought forth in a court case, is Taurus by the band Spirit. But here's the thing, that chord progression is not at all unique to the Spirit song. We also have the song Thoughts by Crow, released in 1969. We have Davy Graham's recording of the standard Cry Me a River. We have Gentle Giant's Nothing at All from 1970. Jeff Beck used the same chord progression in his recording of Greensleeves. And George Harrison also used it in I Me Mine. After the release of Zeppelin 4, it's since been used by Clapton on Let It Grow from 1974. And this motif has existed since at least the 1600s. Even Bach used it, but I gotta say, I hear that one the least out of all the examples I've shown you. So yeah, Zeppelin thieved some blues tunes and put them on their albums without crediting the black musicians that originally wrote and recorded them. But I really don't think Zeppelin stole that song. Why? Because everybody was already doing that song. At the end of the day, there's only so many combinations of notes you can use, and I have heard Stairway's combination of notes more than enough. Lenny Kaye's retrospective review of Zeppelin 4 from Rolling Stone says there isn't one song that steps on another's toes, that tries to do too much all at once. I think this is not true. For one, Black Dog and Rock and Roll, to me, are pretty similar. If any two songs could be classified as one note on Zeppelin 4, I don't think these two are, but if you're looking for two songs that closely fit the bill, it's probably those. But for me, Black Dog gets the slight edge over Rock and Roll because of that riff. It's one of my favorite riffs in anything, but come on, who doesn't love the Black Dog riff? Speaking of Jimmy Page's playing, last week I covered Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd, and I was talking about David Gilmour's playing style. If you're looking at a spectrum between fluid players and rigid players, David Gilmour is all the way on the side of fluid. His playing style is very loose and very pretty. Then you have Jimmy Page's playing style, which is all the way on the side of rigid. You can't find two guitarists with more different of a playing style, and it's so cool. I love it. And this is why I love doing Vinyl Monday. I love listening to albums back to back and having these revelations on music that I've been listening to for years. The other reason I dissent from Lenny Kaye is I think When the Levee Breaks does all too much all at once. And that is why Levee is fucking incredible. It's the equal and opposite Stairway to Heaven. It's the perfect foil for that song. That song is often interpreted, at least a popular interpretation that I've heard and I personally subscribe to. Stairway follows a hero's journey, you know, origin, setting off on the adventure, trials and tribulations, rock bottom, ascent, and at the summit. When the levee breaks is the mountain crumbling. It's like, let's keep the tarot motif going, actually. If I had to assign a tarot card to when the levee breaks, it would be the Tower. It's sudden, down and dirty, unprepared for destruction, and it works so well at the end of an album that seems so carefully prepared for. The blown out harmonica is sick as hell. Robert Plant has a great vocal performance on it. He's wailing to the point where it sounds like he's tearing his vocal cords apart. And as wily as the song is, Bonzo's drumming, like, bludgeons it into submission. His drumming style, as heavy-handed as it is, it just works for tracks like Levee. Like In My Time of Dying on Physical Graffiti and so many others, When the Levee Breaks was not credited to the people who originally wrote and recorded it. That is a conversation for Zeppelin 1, and judging by the outcome of the vote I held on my community tab, Zeppelin 1 is coming soon. And I don't know about you, but I cannot wait to open up that discussion properly. If you ask me, Battle of Evermore is the crown jewel of the A-side. The way Plant and Ms. Denny's vocals blend together so seamlessly, you'd be forgiven for mistaking them as one vocalist. I know it took me an embarrassingly long amount of time to realize, oh, this is two people singing. I forget about Misty Mountain Hop, but when I remember it exists, I like it. I love some good old-fashioned time signature fuckery on a Zeppelin song, so I'm partial to Misty Mountain Hop and Four Sticks. I used to not be crazy about Four Sticks until an ex of mine played it for me on his 12-string guitar, and then I saw the appeal. The acoustic parts give it so much more dimension, and I don't know, is it wrong of me to wish that Four Sticks was all acoustic? There must have been some beautiful muses inspiring Going to California. I've heard Joni Mitchell was the queen who plays her guitar and cries and sings. This wouldn't be too far out of the question, seeing as Zeppelin were big fans of Joni. California and all of Zeppelin 4 is a pretty cool example of how that wonky mid-century medieval trend happening in the 60s worked its way into pop music for the 70s. There's mandolin and recorder all over this album, thank you JPJ, and there's references to white mares and beautiful maidens and epic battles in the lyrics. That could also just be chalked up to Robert Plant being a huge Lord of the Rings nerd. I love talking about Zeppelin on this channel because you can tell that the track listings on all their albums were assembled quite thoughtfully. Zeppelin 4 is another great example of this. Sides A and B both have two rock tracks, one more hard rock in the Zeppelin tradition, and the other influenced by rock and roll's beginnings, whether it's Chuck Berry or the R&B side. They both have one medieval-inspired acoustic number, and they both have one epic. All in that order. Like Levee is the perfect foil to that song. Sides A and B are great foils for each other. It's like looking in a mirror image. One is light and one is dark. As great as the songs left off this album were, I'm happy they ended up on Houses of the Holy and Physical Graffiti and not this one. Having any of those extraneous songs crop up on this album would have messed with that perfect A-side to B-side balance. As for those who say Zeppelin 4 was the peak of Zeppelin, I don't agree. I think their creative peak was Zeppelin 3, even if some of their choices were a little misguided. And their peak ability as a unit, I'd say, why did I hold it like that? Oh my god. Physical graffiti. And their peaks as individual musicians are littered all over their discography. We certainly have some bonzo high points on Zeppelin 4. He's the shining star of Levy. That song would not be what it is without him. As good as that song's guitar solo is, Jimmy Page doesn't really take his throne, I feel, until Achilles' Last Stand. I think I will go listen to Achilles' Last Stand after this. All in all, if you ask me, Zeppelin 4 is a perfect intersection of the albums which came before it. It's the hard rock and blues influence from Zeppelin 2. It's the folksy, experimental, acoustic mastery of Zeppelin 3. And if you put 2 and 3 together, you get 4. Zeppelin 4, to me, isn't necessarily their peak, but considering back-to-back to back-to-back highlights on the track listing and all of the grueling work they had to go through to earn the critical respect this album got, I will say Zeppelin 4 is the band at the summit of their hero's journey. My personal favorites are Battle of Evermore, Misty Mountain Hop, 4 Sticks, Going to California, and When the Levee Breaks. Remember, if you want to keep up with my faves from every Vinyl Monday, I have a Spotify playlist linked in my description. That's where you can hear all of my favorite songs from every Vinyl Monday I've ever done, even the ones that I made before bringing it to YouTube. And that is it. That is Led Zeppelin 4. What do you think of this album and this period in Zeppelin's history? Let me know in the comments. I love hearing what you guys have to say about the albums that I love. And if you like what I do here, you should like this video and subscribe to my channel. I post new episodes of Vinyl Monday every Monday morning at 11 a.m. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!